Archie, luxury jumps on a Boeing jet, leaves behind the family, no regrets. He's got a birthday on your old Shanghai, eyes are on Mrs. Lai, the reason why. While in Brisbane the tears roll strong, Chinese whispers called him to Hong Kong. Pack up your bags and off you go, leave behind the begging for the Luxy show. Archie flies where the dragon soared to romance Mrs. Lai until his balls are sore. Archie's chasing dreams in the mystic land. Mrs. Lai brings coffee to his hand. Family's calls echo on the phone. He's miles away, lost but he's not alone. In old Shenzhen's glow, he likes to stray with Mrs. Lai. They bonk till the light of day. Pack up your bags and off you go. He's not showing up to New York watch show. Archie flies where the dragons soar to romance Mrs. Lai until his balls are sore. Though the tears roll down in Brisbane town, Archie's 3-inch dick flops all around. Celebrations in the neon night, forgetting home he's chasing new Asian delight. Pack up your bags and off you go, leave the begging for the beach ball show. Archie flies where the dragons soar to romance Mrs. Lai until his balls are sore. Weeks later, Archie leaves his playground, comes back home, he's Brisbane bound. Comes up with stories that he's going bust, has to fool the punters to gain their trust. Pack up your bags and off you go, leave the begging for the beach ball show. Archie flies where the dragons soar to romance Mrs. Lai until his balls are sore. Archie spent the punter's money, he's in a fix, spins a story that he can't eat bricks. All the lonely simps believe his scam, grab all their cash, shove it in his hand. Pack up your bags and off you go, he didn't bother with the New York watch show. Archie flies where the dragons soar to romance Mrs. Lai until his balls are sore. Comes on stage, he cries poor again, his mate 10 gives him $5 maybe 10. Archie thinks he's a big swing dick, cause the punters fall for his gypsy shtick. Pack up your bags and off you go, didn't bother with the New York watch show. Archie flies where the dragons soar to romance Mrs. Lai until his balls are sore.
Welcome to the program. Welcome to the show, guys. This is the Archie Luxury live stream, and we are covering watch content. I believe Rich Mitch says, I need this watch content. It's for you, Rich Mitch. We're going to do some watch talk this morning. We're going to cover the Rolex 2025 predictions, talk about a few other topics on monochrome and everything else. So strap in. Let's have some fun. Say hello to everybody in the chat. We got Discount first in the chat from Australia, who's telling us every man also needs their balls washed. Thank you, Discount. We got Night Diver who says we need more Seiko. I like Seiko. I got nothing against Seiko, so I would agree with that. We got Rich Mitch. Yes. We got Mikey Casio GTR. Tell us that the dragon flies high. Yeah, guys, it's going to be a very, very interesting couple of weeks with Watches and Wonders, the old razzle dazzle Bezel world, craziness of all the releases. I think Don Haynes used to call it the Super Bowl of watches. And look, I think there's been a few websites that have already done some predictions. So I'm going to talk about those predictions, talk about kind of what I think of them, whether I think that those sites are just being not that creative, or whether Rolex itself is just not that creative. So we're going to talk some watches, some wristwatches. We got Jeremy Kearney from Ireland here joining us in the chat. We got David H as well. Where's Eddie, man? Well, the link is pinned. So if Eddie, man, is listening, he's welcome to join me as is anybody who wants to talk some watches. Happy to have it. And I know Rich Mitch doesn't want Eddie on the panel when I do watch talk, but look, Rich Mitch, I always let everybody hop on that wants to talk watches and has an opinion. Like, I think with watch collecting, there's a lot of I always found it interesting where everybody has to be an expert, right? Like it's like one of those hobbies where everybody they don't want to come off as like not knowing anything about watches. So everybody kind of pretends to be an expert, and that's where it gets really fucking dicey. Because it's like, and I have multiple examples of this, right? Marco Ferrante was one of them, right? When he first came on, I called this guy out fucking 6 months before Bear did. I was like, this kid doesn't know shit about watches. 6 months later, he was called out for being Bobby Google, right? Like, people who come on here who simply have no experience, very little experience, and try to spruik narratives, try to spruik opinions on watches. And look, do I believe everybody's opinion is valid? Yes, but I don't believe that everybody should be educating folks on watches if they don't really have too much knowledge themselves, right? Because oftentimes people listen to these. This is where people get their information from, either from YouTube, from the forums, or wherever it may be. And yeah, they just unfortunately don't get the whole point of like, look, you have to spend some time learning a bit about watches before you can kind of dive into the deep end of educating people here. Watch Nicholas, educating people on watch talk and on what look, like, we got a lot of people who join this show that they ask questions. They simply want to know from experience. Hey man, you've had experience either owning this watch. The way I always looked at it, one of my arguments back in the day against Marco was, I'm not going to take advice from used car salesmen or people that have never actually spent their own money, their own hard-earned money, on watches, right? Like, it's like with Lamborghinis. Like, I'm not gonna take some armchair fucking enthusiast word for it. I'm gonna take at least from a buying experience or an experience of like ownership from somebody who's actually owned those cars. And it's the same with watches, right? Like, I can tell you guys why I feel that the 5711 is not worth the money. At least the money it's going for on the market, because I've owned that watch. I've spent my own hard-earned money on that watch, and I could tell you what that watch is worth, basically from my own experience with it, right? But some guy who's works at I'm not saying this is about Marco specifically, but any of these used watch dealers, right, or whoever they may be, like, I take whatever they say with a grain of salt, because we all know that they're trying to sell watches. And I think Watch Nick showed a video yesterday where I was talking about the Air King. And he showed a video of, like, I think it was Berdine's. I'm not 100% sure. But he showed a video of a watch dealer that was saying that, oh, you should take the Air King over a fucking GMT. I was like, what? Like, what world are we living in that the fucking Air King would be something you would take over the GMT? I don't know. But yeah, look, you got to be careful with those spruiking, right? Like, I always try to check people's credentials. How long have you been collecting? Look, it's like the Wizard, right? The Wizard last year, really early last year, before the Wizard even came on Archie's show last year. Was the last year or the year before? I don't remember. But Wizard kind of got wind that I was looking for a 5212 Patek Philippe weekly calendar. And then Wizard reaches out to me on Instagram, trying to say, hey, look, I've been in the business for like fucking 40 years and stuff. And little did the Wizard know that I actually I did moderate a lot of the Canadian watch forums, some of the Canadian Facebook watch groups as well. The Wizard didn't know that about me. And so I started asking the Wizard questions. I'm like, well, so do you know so and so? Like, I've been trading watches in Canada for over a decade, so I know all the major dealers. They all know me. So I asked a lot, and he knew nobody in Canada. And I was like, well, you're a Canadian dealer. How the fuck do you know nobody in Canada? And I just got the sense that the guy was just a fucking, he was a fly by the night COVID dealer, and I didn't buy from him. I said, thank you, thank you for reaching out. I'm gonna look for my watch somewhere else, and I bought it from my own dealer that Bear knows very well, and that was very trustworthy in doing the transaction. We got Rich Mitch, first super chat of the day. Thank you so much, Rich Mitch. £2 British. Will wait time for my date just 36 come down 6 months now? Look, Rich Mitch, I would say in my neck of the woods, yes, the UK is a bit of a different animal. I always got the vibe in the UK. Look, demand for watches is pretty strong. It has been pretty strong in the UK. Throughout. Maybe it's sinking a bit right now, but I think those UK dealers are still holding on to that whole aura of like, well, it's unattainable. And I remember Rich Mitch going to an AD in Bath. So my wife, her friend was getting married, so we came to the UK a couple of years ago, and the wedding was happening in Bath. And I think it was because Sirocco was still alive at the time, because I remember walking around the Roman baths, and I was talking to Sirocco and Dodger, because Dodger was visiting Sirocco in Jersey at the time. I remember that vividly. Anyways, I go into this AD I had met Muhammad Ali about a few days before, and Muhammad Ali told me, like, look, man, like, the UK, if you're not local, it's not even fucking worth asking. I went to Bath, and in Bath, Rich Mitch, they were like, oh, you'll never get a Patek Philippe from us, because, I mean, it's all blue bloods over there. It's, it's generational wealth. They're like, look, we've been serving people's grandfathers and great, like, certain areas of the UK, Rich Mitch, I think, are just out of bounds. I think in the other major, metropolitan areas, it's going to be very tough, because it's still very competitive. So, yeah, I mean, I think for you in the UK, is it going to be more obtainable? Sure. but the UK is still, I think, a very difficult market right now. At least that's I don't have too much experience, but that was my anecdotal experience, I guess you could say. We got Watch Nicholas Hate Stream with a $1 super sticker. Thank you so much, Watch Nicholas. For those that don't know, Watch Nicholas has a monetized channel. Click the, if you have a wrench, you can definitely find his channel. Look up Watch Nicholas Hate Stream. He's in the chat here, talking about Mitos and talking about shitters. I've got Jeremy Kearney. Thank you so much. €2.50. Rolex Explorer 1 or the, okay. I'm wondering if this is the Grand Seiko that you asked about the other day. GS SBGN027 and Tudor Black Bay monochrome. Okay, so Rolex Explorer 1 or the Grand Seiko and the Tudor. Okay, let me look up the Grand Seiko here. SBGN027. Grand Seiko. Okay, it's not a bad looking watch. Not a bad looking watch. Jeremy, I think you're really into these GMTs, these Grand Seiko. I think you asked this question before, Jeremy. You know what? It's a toss up, right? Like, you're gonna find the Rolex fans are gonna say Rolex, don't buy anything but Rolex. But you're talking about two watches here. You're saying you're gonna spend the same money on the Grand Seiko plus the Tudor Black Bay. You said the monochrome. Let's find the Black Bay monochrome on the Jubilee. If I want Jubilee images, give me some images on the Jubilee. I look. I think value for money. You're going to get more for, if the watches are, if you're saying it's equal value, Jeremy Kearney. I would say probably go with the Grand Seiko and the Tudor. I'm wearing the Explorer 40 right now myself, Jeremy. So I can give you advice as an owner of one of these watches. Look, I love the Explorer. I think it's a great watch. I think it's very under the radar. It's a watch you can wear everywhere. You got Rolex quality. You got a historic, classic design. In one of the most historic sports watches that Rolex has, everybody kind of, everyone loves the sub, right? The sub has always been the darling of the collection, but the Explorer has been around literally as long as the sub has in that sense. So just as historic. But I'd say in this case, Jeremy, you got, a combination of the Grand Seiko GMT plus the Tudor. You're getting two watches for that price. I would probably go with the two watches. Other people are going to disagree with me. Dan saying Explorer 1 in the chat. And yeah, it's just how it is, Ray. It's just how it is. Uzi's shoebox has 10. I've been ripped off, but my super glow has not arrived. Uzi's shoebox. We love the trolls, man. We love the troll accounts here. Quartz version. Okay, no problem. Look, Jeremy, look, a number one. I mean, Seiko invented quartz. They were the first to market with quartz, and they do make a good high accuracy quartz watch. So if you don't mind quartz, or if it doesn't really bother you, then yeah, I mean, I don't really see a problem with it. But I mean, Grand Seiko, the one beef I've had with Grand Seiko, and I said to a lesser extent, even with Lange, was a few years ago. Grand Seiko used to be touted as, Rolex quality for, basic, not that much money, right? So, look at this SBG. I mean, 4,600 Canadian dollars. The people would talk about, the quality you're getting in this watch for the price, and look, in certain pieces, it's good value. In other ones, like, looking at the birches and even the snowflakes, right? Like the snowflake, I think the snowflake was the real watch that was, kind of touted as Rolex quality, but for a way better price. With Grand Seiko price increasing, the birches are very expensive. The snowflakes aren't, cheap, at least the newer ones. I mean, the value starts to erode with Grand Seiko. And there's a lot of misinformation about Grand Seiko. Grand Seiko was not finished anywhere, at least not in the majority of the models that most of us look at, which are, if I'm talking like Snowflake, Peacock, Birch, all these kind of models, it is nowhere near finished to the Holy Trinity. That is a misnomer. That is misinformation. That is completely not true. Some of their watches at the very high end, Higgins has a platinum version, very similar to the Creator Aichi 2. I mean, yeah, those ones I would say are definitely finished to a very, very high degree. Anything that comes out of the Micro Artist Studio from Grand Seiko is definitely finished at that high degree level, but the majority of these watches aren't really. So, bit of a misnomer there. And similarly, I think a bit with Lange as well. Like Lange in the past, I mean, you could buy a Lange 1 for, in the teens. I mean, that was great value. The kind of finishing you would get on that watch was far superior than, other Trinity brands, and at a really good price. But when Langes are now in the 20s and the 30s, I'm not buying a Lange one for, mid-20s. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's a Lange. Like, this is the thing I think people don't understand is, yeah, is it finished to a high degree? Absolutely. Is it a great watch? Absolutely. But it's still a Lange. It's not a Patek Philippe. It's not an AP. It's not a Rolex. It doesn't have the brand name recognition that you do pay a premium for. I'm sorry, guys. Like, watches are to some extent status symbols, and you have to really understand that to understand why some of that value just ain't there. This is the time slot of the morning show. Yeah, you know what, Tommy? I said this to Archie and Lux. I said, the North American market's not open at fucking 5:30 in the morning, right? Like, the odd time I'm up before, an early day at work or whatever, or today I had some stuff to do in the morning, so I was like, you know what, I got that out of the way early in the morning. I was on the show, kind of, having some fun with Lux and Narc and Angelic and those guys, and then yeah, I was like, wow, you know what, I got some time. I want to do some watch talk, and I know Rich Mitch is gonna, he's definitely gonna be around to listen in, so I figured I'd do that. No Caliber, YQG, we haven't got into it. We got a couple super chats. I go with the flow of the chat. I got lots of time here for you guys today. I'm gonna spend some time. Caliber YQG, did I miss the Rolex predictions? You did not. Will they bring out a cool new Milgauss? That's a tough one, Caliber YQG, because I mean, 1,000 Gauss, 1000 Gauss, right? Like, it's not really. I mean, it's not even competitive to the Metas, the Metas certification, which has way better resistance than 1000 Gauss. So, I mean, I don't really see how they can bring the 1000 Gauss back, at least under the name. Maybe they'll try to keep the name, but even then, it's kind of stupid. Like, if you up the resistance from 1000 Gauss, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I really don't see why this watch would come back with Caliber YQG. Outside of nostalgia, right? Like, and if they're gonna do that, I would just say go back to the old 6541. I'm gonna pull this up for you, Caliber YQG, Rolex 6541, not to be confused with the GMT Master, which is a 6542. This is the OG 1000 Gauss right here on the screen from Fratello here. Like, if they did this, Caliber YQG, absolutely, I think this would be a hit, just from a nostalgia perspective. Not really functional, you could say, but yeah, a bit of a retro vibe. Yeah, I could see if they did this Caliber YQG. Yes, I would agree with it. Anything else, bringing out another Milgauss doesn't make a lot of sense, because it's kind of not really. It's not really. I just don't think it's got a lot of relevance in today's market of Metas certified pieces. We got Rich Mitch, £2 Thank you so much, Rich Mitch. Sold my Black Bay 58. The OEM strap was a nightmare. So Rich Mitch, I owned I'm going to pull up my Black Bay Tudor watches. Tudor watch. We're not going to look at the Royal today. We could look at the Royal. Let's go Black Bay 58. Black Bay 58. So Rich Mitch, I owned this one. With the blue, they call it a soft touch strap, or I don't know, a fabric strap. So you know what? It wasn't bad. My only beef with it, Rich Mitch, was can I put it? Can I take it in water? It had a bit of a rubberized. Underneath it was rubberized, but it's like, I don't know. Not bad, not a bad watch. I do prefer Black Bays on bracelets, but I mean, it's not like you can't buy it on a bracelet. But look, the Black Bay 58 for me, Rich Mitch, I told the story. The Black Bay 58 came out the same year that the GMT Pepsi came out, the steel ceramic GMT Pepsi. And I remember, I beelined. I was at the Rolex event after Basel World. Me and Ronnie Paul were there in Toronto, and I immediately beelined to the Pepsi, put it on the wrist, thought it was a perfect watch. And then after I was done with that, I was just walking around, and one of the essays in that evening was like, "Hey, you should try on the Black Bay 58." And I was like, nah. Like, I mean, I don't need to fuck with any other Black Bays but the one I got, which was I had the original ETA version, obviously 41 mils. I was like, I don't need to fuck with any more Black Bays. But she insisted, right? So I was like, okay. I fuck, I'll humor her. Put it on the wrist, and actually was a pretty perfect sized watch. 39 mils, a little thinner than the 41. Look, for people that can't wear the 54, or feel a little emasculated by wearing a small watch, aren't really comfortable, wearing a small watch for whatever reason. I really feel that the Black Bay 54 in 37 mils is actually one of the most spectacular watches from the perspective of the fact that it's the only watch I've ever worn that actually feels like a vintage watch, a modern watch that truly feels vintage, whether it's the size, whether it's the look of the insert, just a lot of different features of that watch really bring it to that level for me. So I like the Black Bay 58, Rich Mitch. I think you should probably pull together yourself. Where is Archie today? Well, Tom, Archie's he's in China right now, and I believe it is late in the evening or in the evening in China. So I'm just hosting some watch talk. Tom, you're obviously welcome to hop on, talk some watches with me if you like. Shout out to Tom, who is in Mexico visiting his son and his wife. I think Tom came on the other day. Shout out to him. Tommy says Ducky's about to come in the chat. Yeah, poor Ducky, man. Well, look, Ducky was bullied in the Archie Luxury live stream at a time, Tommy, when look, Lange was. I used to call it a Lange in depreciation, is what I used to call it. I always felt that it was a brand that, look, it just didn't hold a lot of value. It was cool. I like the watches; they're cool, but the brand just never held very good value. So Ducky had bought. I think Ducky said it was an 1815. I think he got like trolled for it or some shit, and I was like, that wouldn't happen in today's day and age, Tommy, because like you buy a Lange 1815, you ain't gonna get trolled for that anymore. But look, different time, right? Different, and I think that's interesting about watch collecting, right? How it evolves over time, how the playing field. Like, I would love to have been around in the 90s or had the disposable income. I was around in the 90s, but I was in my teens probably at the time. But in the 90s when Panerai was the Ducks fucking nuts, right? Like, that would have been great to say, to be around at a time when you couldn't buy Panerais. It would be so surreal. But you just don't hear about that today, right? So Pavel says the Red Milgauss is coming. We got my boy Dur Stafel in the chat. Nice to see you, Dur. I heard someone say Grand Seiko. My blood pressures got elevated. So I popped in to hear this ridiculous question. As someone with vast experience with Grand Seiko, stay the hell away from the trash. So Dur Stiefel obviously has been a fan of the show for a long time, an OG of the Archie Luxury channel. And he actually lost his way for many years. He was hanging out with Craig Shipp, and he went like in the deep end with the Grand Seiko. And I remember talking to Dur. And look, I always liked Dur. Dur was always cool, man. And I never really bothered him. But, you could tell Dur was drinking this Kool-Aid of Grand Seiko for the longest time. And Craig Shipp was the one kind of, touting that Grand Seiko was better than Patek Philippe. I was just like, come on, Craig. Like, come on. Like, what kind of bullshit? Where's this coming from, right? And I think people are just sold on the story of the micro artist studio, which, yeah, I mean, if you're getting a piece from the micro artist studio, a very high-end piece, sure. But it's all relative, guys. It's all relative to the price, right? Those watches are not cheap. They're still 50, 60 grand. Like, they're not cheap ass watches. So you're not really getting that Grand Seiko value at that top end. Well, Higgins would argue with me on that. He feels there's probably a lot of value in that, but hey, it is what it is. Tan the Snowflake, training wheel engaged. Tan the Snowflake was named after me. Don't really know what that means, but yeah, I guess we will roll with that. What is the drum this stream? I don't know. Just talking watches, just chilling. I'm going to cover some Rolex predictions in a little bit. Let's get into the chat here. I get it. The Milgauss is cool. It's some of the renders. Yeah, look, it's cool, man. But I don't know. I don't see the Milgauss coming back. It doesn't really have a place for me. My internet is too trash for me to be. Yeah, it's all good, Tom. Feel free to just listen in, bro. I'm happy to have you here. What's going on, Watch Reporter? Peasant Philippe. You know what's funny, Watch Reporter was like, I was watching Tim Mossel yesterday, and Watch Reporter was pulling off the whole Bukiakistan. That's all he was writing in the chat was like Bukiakistan and all this bullshit. So I thought that was really funny. I get a real laugh from Watch Reporter sometimes. He says some really, really stupid shit. Got Uzi in the chat. I'll be getting my watch. All right, Uzi, that's gonna be great. Look, Uzi. You gotta enter. The second you show that on Archie's show, you gotta enter with that black and yellow track, man. Because I mean, that's a Steelers watch. You're in Pittsburgh. Solid gold dancer, black. A watch that I really dig, man. Really underrated. A lot of people don't give it the time of day, but I think that black on gold, man, is gonna be fire. And I think, yeah, man, you should definitely. That should be your entrance music. Is the black and yellow, black and yellow. We got Dirk Diggler in the chat. Is the members only kink stream? I don't know what that means. Is this members only? Nah, man. This is free to everybody. Free to everybody. You got Watch Reporter who's deciding to look. Watch Reporter. Just don't spam the chat, man. Like, you can say whatever you want. Just don't spam the chat like that. Uzi Shoebox. The Shoebox has the troll account. Tis Strem is making me feel like I'm upside down on Delta at Pearson's International Airport. Very sad, actually. I don't know if anyone saw that video, but seems like the plane when it actually landed, it just really hit hard, and then you could see fire under the plane. So I don't know if that was pilot error or whatever. They haven't really discussed what happened, but just happy no one passed away from that. Yeah, man, Steelers and honeybee. So yeah, you know what? I think that would be great. Mainstream is dead. Hey, now, Watch Reporter. Let's clam down here, Watch Reporter. Let's clam down with the rhetoric, because the state you're in would definitely join as the 11th province of Canada. So I think you should just clam down on that one. I think, yeah, man, definitely. We were on the stream. You were on your stream yesterday when it happened. I was on Twitter, and fucking like 2 minutes before, it's like there was a plane crash at Pearson International, which is wild. Definitely wild. Can we get Opus in Time on with Arch? Yeah, you know what, Joseph D. I don't mind Sweet Kid Kino and all those guys, the Muppet Boot Gray Market Dealers. I don't know if he's got because he's from like that whole TPG era, saga era, like all that stuff with like Watch Nick and Loose and those guys. I think Opus in Time's one of those guys, right? So I don't know. Maybe it's I don't really know the guy that well. I do hop on his live stream every once in a while just to say what's up, but it's pretty dead over there. But he is pretty funny. I do like Opus in Time, and yeah, look, everybody's welcome here, guys, if they want to contribute. All right, we got through the chat here. Let's get through some new watch talk. Before I get to Rolex predictions, I wanted to talk about, because there's going to be a heavy component of GMT conversation today with the Rolex predictions. So I wanted to talk about this newly released Laurent Ferrier Classic Traveler Globe Night Blue. So this is a GMT. It's a travel time watch, you could say. Really cool. Really cool look. Obviously, it's not a new. It's not a new lineup from Laurent Ferrier. It's just I believe it's an anniversary model for them. Where you can see here on the dial, it's depicting the Earth from a night view. Obviously, all the lights across the globe. If you were looking at it from space, really cool. That's a really cool motif. I like the idea of it. But again, right, like this is where when I kind of talked about earlier with that Grand Seiko about it all being relative to the price. As you're going to see through here, I'm going to talk to you guys a bit about the value of this watch, but it's all going to be relative to how much it actually costs, right? So is it a bad looking piece? Not really. Not everybody's a fan of these. They got a weird name like Assegai or some weird name for these hands. But it's a very common. It's a look for Laurent Ferrier. The little onionish crown here at 3 o'clock. Not everybody's favorite. You got these kind of two pushers here on the left. Design wise, it's decent, not bad. I mean, for me, it's really that just center disc of the dial on the front end that really strikes my attention. But it's really the magic in Laurent Ferrier is going to come into the finishing of the actual movement. So I'm going to show you guys a bit of that finishing. What's good in here. First thing you want to look at, you got these beveled jewel sinks. Very, very cool. Very, very nice. You can see the beveling or the anglage is actually quite wide. A lot of what either looks like internal angles on the piece here. And even here, you've got so much really deep anglage, which is it's not common you see on certain brands, but other brands it becomes a bit of their signature. Not to say like if you look at like a Recepi or you look at a Dufour, I mean their anglage is very, very wide. Like it's a very deep anglage. It's very beautiful look. This is obviously not to that extent, but it's still very nice. Very, very highly hand finished. And really, this is really what you're paying for in this watch. But is everybody going to care about perlage on the base plate? Or micro rotor, the finishing on the micro rotor, or whether it's black polished screw heads or whatever it may be, the types of finishing that comes in these watches, it is not everybody's cup of tea, and this is all relative, right? This is literally a travel time or a dual time type watch, and it for me it's a nice piece, but I just don't know if I would go against a Patek Philippe, travel time, or a Rolex GMT Master 2. If I need to track two time zones, for me, I don't really understand this watch. It is a nice piece. It is very beautiful. It is highly finished. It is also very, very expensive. I think retail here is, what are they saying? 90,000 Swiss francs, right? So this is also very relative, guys, to the price, right? Everyone says, well, Laurent Ferrier does better finishing than Patek Philippe. It's all relative to the price, right? Like not every Patek Philippe is 90,000 Swiss francs. So, take that with a grain of salt as well. But look, very, very beautiful movement, a beautiful watch. And the reason I pulled this up just first, before I get into the Rolex stuff was there is going to be a lot of GMT talk today. And this is just an alternative to the Rolex GMT. Laurent Ferrier, Globe Traveler, nice piece, but not really for me. Kelslowitz was looking at a Laurent Ferrier before he bought or dived deep into Patek Philippe, and one of the reasons why he said he didn't go with the brand was he said, "Look, there's just no community. There's nobody I can speak to about these watches. I'm not going to encounter people that are going to be able to have a in-depth discussion of why these watches are good or why these watches. I showed you kind of in a quick few minutes what's good about this watch. What's bad? Dial is great, really cool. Look, I'm not sure if this is enamel. I haven't looked that up. I can look that up for you. We can actually probably see it in the stats here at the bottom. Let's have a look. Dial is a white gold spherical dial with blue Champlevé enamel and slate gray circular satin brushed hour ring. So definitely an enamel dial. Really nice piece. Like, look, it's not a bad looking piece. It's just 90,000 Swiss francs. I mean, there's something called opportunity cost, boys and girls. And I don't know if I'm spending 90,000 Swiss francs on an arguably cool looking dial and a really nice movement. But I mean, you're going to get similar movements in other Laurent Ferriers that probably are not going to cost you as much money. So, not the one for me, but I wanted to highlight this because we are going to talk a lot about GMTs. And I figured let's just do something a little different from Rolex. All right, we got another super chat from Uzi's Playhouse. Thank you so much, Uzi. $10. Is the solid gold sub more rugged than the full gold Jubilee GMT? It depends what you mean by rugged, Uzi. Do I feel that the Oyster will hold up as in not crumble over time? I think both of them are pretty. I think both of them will hold up decently over time. As you've heard from Patrick and many others, the Jubilee will hide scratches a bit better than these. If you're getting an Oyster bracelet, Oyster bracelets definitely, polished center links or any kind of polished areas, and gold is going to be like, it's going to be soft, bro. Like, now, is it going to fall apart like the old models, like the old, the old day dates and whatnot, and stretch on the bracelets? Nah, it's not going to happen like that. But it really depends on what you mean by rugged, right? I think both are just fine for regular use. I think, if I had to say one is to hold up a little bit better, maybe the Oyster from a not falling apart perspective would probably hold up a little bit better potentially than a Jubilee, but I don't think it's to a point where it's even a discussion, Uzi, on the sense that you would be able to distinguish which one is like head and shoulders. This watch will, this bracelet will fall apart versus this other one. I don't think it's even close to that level. So I think for you, bro, it's get what you like. It's get what looks best on you. And to honestly, the reality to Uzi is, are you really going to keep this watch for 30 years? I mean, a lot of us say we will, but I mean, not many of us do. So, let's also be a bit of a realist here, Uzi. So that's the way I look at it. I wouldn't really worry about it. I think you'd be fine either way. George Stiefel says there is no more value for money with the Grand Seiko. That ship is such a fucker. That ship has sailed a long time ago on massive price increases. BS inspirational stories about dials and tons of QL control issues. I've actually heard about the quality control issues. George Stiefel, I have a friend who owns a micro artist studio piece, and I think when they were looping the movement, they noticed some imperfections, I would say, in the movement, and they ended up shipping the watch back to Japan. And realistically, we're not happy with the way the micro artist studio returned the watch. So, yeah, I mean, I've heard that too on the quality. Like, look, it's Grand Seiko is selling you this story of, we're nestled in the mountains of Japan. It's a snowy day. We're all snowed in, and you got these watchmakers that are hand polishing. Like, yeah, on certain parts, maybe, on certain pieces, maybe, but not on everything, not on the majority of the watches. And the watches that your guys are probably looking to buy are not going to be, like, don't drink the Kool-Aid, right? Like, it's the same old bullshit the Swiss were spitting around. Oh, it's all being hand finished over. It takes a year to make this watch. It's some bullshit, right? Like, no. And look, I know Der Stiefel went deep down the rabbit hole of Grand Seiko. So if he's saying that, I would take his word for it. Hi, Palway. Palway, nice to see you, Palway. I'm not sure if Palway's in the chat. I haven't seen the old Pal Wheezy name, but if Palway's in the chat, shout out to Palway. Nikki likes Laurent Ferrier, but you are, yes, definitely prone to buying shares. What's going on, little Dave? Nice to see you, man. We got Joseph D who's become a new member. Thank you so much, Joseph D. Jeremy, we haven't even gotten into the topic. I've just been trying to chill with you guys in the chat. All right, let's get into Rolex predictions. Okay, so I'm going to pull up from Monochrome Watches. So Watch Nicholas covered this yesterday. Archie covered this yesterday. I do feel that I want to go a little bit deeper than what those guys covered. But yeah, this is Monochrome's Rolex predictions for 2025. So let's start right off the rip here. So 70 years of the GMT Master. Now, Marcelo has been talking a lot about this. He says it's really the year of the GMT Master, and you're going to see a lot of GMT watches here. Hey Patel, what's your take on AP anniversary? Let me look up AP. I haven't seen the AP anniversary edition. So let's have a look. In 2025, celebrated its limited edition Royal. Oh yeah, okay. Here we go. I did see this watch. Let me pull up AP's website for you there, Bufaris. Let's see what I can find here. Where is this editorial anniversaries and milestones? Because they released something here. Bufaris. I'm just trying to see what it was. Is the question Bufaris on a watch specifically? I'm not really finding anything. I see some watches, but I don't think this is what you're talking about. AP's anniversary. So he is speaking about the 150th anniversary of AP. So that's 2025. What do I think AP is going to do? Like, look, in AP, Bufaris, I would say they're known for two things. The first is, and everybody knows this, is the Royal Oak. But another area that AP is known for that a lot of people don't know is the perpetual calendar. AP has not as storied a history in the perpetual calendar as Patek Philippe does. Obviously, Patek Philippe being the first brand to produce not only the first perpetual calendar wristwatch, but also the first serially produced perpetual calendar wristwatch. And AP didn't create one for a number of years after Patek Philippe. So AP definitely will do something in the Royal Oak lineup, Faris, but I would say that they should incorporate the perpetual calendar in it because, I mean, AP has a world first on the perpetual calendar. They were the first to put a leap year indicator on the perpetual calendar, for example. So I would hope that it would be a combination of those two, which is really something I do love to see is a Royal Oak with a perpetual calendar. I like, and like people are gonna say I got bad taste, but I like the Travis Scott version and others that are out there. So yeah, I'm really hoping it's something like that. Faris, but unless there's anything else, a specific reference, just drop in the chat and I'll pull it up. And I did thank Joseph D for becoming a member. Let's get back to Rolex predictions. So Marcelo's been talking about the 70 years anniversary, 70 years of the GMT, and they're talking about a blueberry platinum. And where I really want to. I think a lot of new watch collectors are like, whoa, my God, I love this color combo. Not really knowing that. I mean, Monochrome, I believe in this article is just being a little lazy and is just kind of looking at like what Rolex produced in the past and saying, oh yeah, that could be an option for today. So not everybody is probably familiar with a GMT Blueberry, but I'm going to pull up a 1675 GMT Blueberry for you guys to see here. And it is, similar, not exactly the same. Obviously, you got a black dial and on the article, on the other article, you kind of saw a blue dial, but this idea of a blueberry isn't something new. And do I think? I mean, could they come out with a watch like this? Sure, but it's not the first time they've done a blueberry. And platinum GMT, yeah, I could see it, but the GMT has been out for 6540 has been out for a long time, guys, and they haven't really produced anything like that before. So not likely, but not impossible. I think the blueberry idea is just, like I said, monochrome just being lazy. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be blue, right? Like, if anything, blue's kind of even moving out of fad in watches, right? We had the whole blue craze, and we had the green craze, and now we have the salmon craze. And I mean, a lot of us like blue, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in fashion. So I don't know. I could see it, but I don't have a lot of faith in them doing this watch specifically. So that's the first prediction: is the blueberry. Nice looking watch. I think on the Jubilee, this looks schmicko. I would fucking buy this watch. I think this looks really nice. Other iterations on the Oyster. Look, the way I see this on the Oyster is kind of how I see the Batman on the Oyster. I think that the Oyster, when it looks at the Batman specifically, I think the Jubilee does not look good on the Batman. And I had the same kind of vibe. So the following year after the GMT, so I'm talking about the Rolex events after Basel World. So again, I went to Toronto. Ronnie Paul invited me, and it was the year that they were releasing the Batgirl. And I kind of told you my experience of when I put the Pepsi on the wrist with the Jubilee. Instantly fell in love with it. When I put on the Batgirl, I didn't like it at all. I know there's a lot of people who own the Batgirl. It's not a bad piece, but I felt that the Batgirl was better on Oyster than it was on Jubilee. Uzi, yeah, he did cover this, but I don't think he went in depth into talking about the references that these are actually based on, and that's what I'm going to do because I actually have experience in this, and I know what these references look like. But yeah, I don't really think that platinum on the Oyster is going to look very nice. I prefer it on the Jubilee. And here's the meteorite version or another option. They say I think potentially it's either in platinum or it's in white gold. Never really a fan of these meteorite dials on the GMT. I think they're really bad for legibility. I don't think they look very pleasing. I get the point of them. I like stone dials, but I think from a legibility perspective, this one and the Pepsi really kind of fall short. That's why I'm not a huge fan of them. I like them and just they don't get my dick fat like they do for like other people like Bear and Hoff, these other guys who just absolutely go bonkers for the meteorite. Like for me, nice watch. I get it, but I just like I think Goldberg said it too. Like it's just not legible, man. Rich Mitch, 2 British pounds. Thank you so much, Rich Mitch. You seen the Explorer with black enamel digits, 14270? No, I haven't. Rich Mitch, drop a link in the chat and I'll pull it up. I haven't seen that. I'm no Rolex expert, and I love the meteorite. Odds Rolex releases a new model this year. Milgauss is gone. Time for something brand new in the line. Yeah, I was talking to Marcelo about this. Like, Rolex has come out with something like 20 new patents and stuff like that. I mean, the kind of point of it is that do they really need a new lineup? Like, I think they need to cull a few lineups. I mean, is the Explorer 2 really? It's going to sound like blasphemy, right? Especially on Archie's channel, but like Explorer 2, like, does that really need to be around? We got like, not only do we have a shit ton of GMTs, I mean, Monochrome thinks they're going to add more GMTs. Like, I haven't even got started on the GMTs they're going to add, right? So at that point, they're like, the Explorer 2 really even, is it really even relevant? Yachtmaster 1, shout out to Watch Nicholas, shout out to Bear Clooney, big Yachtmaster fans. I always thought the Yachtmaster was a shit watch, a shit lineup. Never really understood the lineup. What the fuck is the point of it? It's a rich man sub, you could call it. I don't know. And it never really was that popular a lineup. They kind of injected a bit of life into that lineup, just like they did with the Air King, right? The Air King's always been the entry level fucking shitter. I mean, like I remember when I first started collecting, the Air King was a 34 mil watch. Okay, they differentiated it from the Datejust because the Datejust was 36 at the time. Well, they had both. They had the Datejust, they had the Datejust 2, they had the 36, they had the 41. But they differentiated the Air King as a 34 mil because they didn't want to make it a 36 because then it would cannibalize into either the Explorer or it would cannibalize into the Datejust. So I think Rolex needs to cull more lineups there than add lineups. I just the way I see it, I don't see the need for them to add more in that sense. All right, Rich Mitch, let me pull this up for you here, bro. I do have the chat up, so it makes it a little easier for me. Bob's Watches. Let's share the screen. Shedding light on the Blackout Explorer. All right, I haven't seen this of the Blackout Explorer. Over the years, Rolex enthusiasts have proven to be quite adept at picking up even the slightest tweaks. No details is small to escape their passion once the loops and macro lenses looked at this. Saf, okay, what am I looking at? Version 1. Okay, here we go. First version was released in 1990. This model was new and improved. The matte black dial, acrylic crystal. First batch to leave the factory seemed to have a gloss style that had 3/6 filled with black enamel. Very cool. And this is what Rich Mitch is talking about, where folks that are used to obviously the white gold indices just being completely white gold, showing here a fill with enamel. That is quite nice. It's hard, honestly, Rich Mitch. It's hard to even see, I guess you would say, from pictures, and easy to probably overlook because you could just assume it's a reflection, right? Obviously, it's white gold on those indices, and therefore highly reflective. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't actually know this watch existed, man. I appreciate the look and the link here, bro, because that is really nice. But look, again, this is the nerdy part about Rolex. This is actually what I like about Rolex is there's so much variety and depth to Rolex, and just differences of models and submodels and variants. It's just a very, very wide net, and you can find a lot of what you're looking for in Rolex. But the Rolex of today, the modern Rolex, I mean, it's different than kind of what we're looking at over here. It's more centered around, looking brand new forever. Everybody loves that new car smell, and a lot of collectors these days they just want the latest and greatest, right? Like, yeah, I always find it funny, because I really think I've been in this game a long time, and when I see the folks that are just gobbling up all of the hype pieces right now, I kind of think in my mind, Rich Mitch and everybody, I kind of think like, what's going to happen to these folks at the 10-year refresh when their models are no longer the current model? They are no longer the latest and greatest, right? Like, are these folks going to continue playing the AD game for another 10 years to be able to get those new models again? I don't think so. I think obviously a lot more models are becoming available at retail. Therefore, playing the games are going to become less prevalent. And those same folks may not actually be in the hobby in 10 years. That's the way I see it, because if you're just buying it for the wrong reasons, there's no longevity in that, for the way I see it. So it is what it is, as this man says. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Faris says, I think they should revamp the GMT's lineup, case lineup. It's due. Yeah, this is something Marcelo actually told me this morning. He was mentioning that I think he mentioned that the ceramic GMT came out in, like, he was saying 2005. So, he was saying that it's about 20 years since that was released, and he believes that they're going to create a new case or an updated case, similar to like he feels how they did with the Daytona. So Marcelo, and I'll give him credit for this. He's been the only one before monochrome, before all these guys were touting the GMT. It's going to be the year of the GMT. He was talking about this in January, even I think it was January. So yeah, I mean, like, Marcelo's even bought in this. Right, I told Marcelo I was going to kind of talk about the GMT today, so I don't know if he's still up, but he did say he may hop on if he was still up. But yeah, did you see my show today? I don't know if that's to me, JB. I saw it yesterday. Saw parts of it yesterday. You were streaming at the same time as Tim Masso's, so I did try to check it out, but I did go over to Tim Masso's as well. There's Stiefel. I would like to see something brand new this year instead of just adding some more Datejust styles. Yeah, man. I would love to see them completely overhaul. Look, the problem, Der Stiefel, is, and this is what I find funny about everybody who's complaining about the Cubitus. Everyone's like, "Oh, fuck," like they're not original, or they should have done more. It's like, these are the same motherfuckers that simp over a color change, right? Like, I remember calling Mr. GMT out for this. He called the Cubitus the most boring release, and I said, Mr. GMT, like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't hear you calling out Omega for, their white dial Speedmaster. Bear called it the greatest fucking release of 2024. I'm like, Bear, I love the fact that Bear's an Omega Speedmaster simp now, but you can't tell me that a fucking dial color is the best watch of the year. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so there's a lot of kind of this talk on, YouTube, on forums, just Steve. It's like, yeah, I mean, this is what you should expect from Rolex, is just a couple color changes, bro. Maybe some new metals. That's about it. You're not going to get a new lineup. I'm telling you that for sure. Okay, so kind of moving away from these. I'll show you guys all the platinum versions that they're predicting. Not really a fan of it on the Oyster. Love it on the Jubilee, and it's okay on the Meteorite. But again, legibility ain't the greatest. And I'd probably go for a Pepsi. So that's one of the first predictions. The second prediction is a GMT Coke, and I believe they think this Coke is going to be released in white gold. It's well, yep, in white gold. They're saying they think it's good. Like, look, does it make sense for them to release it in white gold? Absolutely. I mean, obviously they released the Pepsi in a precious metal before it came out in steel. They do have a lot of like think of all the colors. Right? You got the Batman slash Batgirl. You got the Bruce Wayne. You've got the Pepsi. You've got I mean you've got the Sprite. Like you got so many colors, guys, in steel, like more so than I've seen ever in the GMT. So to add another one in the Coke, like I don't know, right? Like I think at some point one of those colors is gonna get sunset, and it pains me to think that it would be like the Batman because for a long period of time I felt that the Batman colorway was like the most fire colorway. This is at a time I owned a 16710 GMT Master 2. That's the previous version to the ceramic. I had the pre-ceramic. The cool part of the pre-ceramic 16710 is you could buy all the bezel inserts. Like it didn't really matter if it was a Pepsi or a Coke. You could just buy all of them. Go to the AD and just show that you had the watch, and then they would be like, okay, yeah. So I remember I ordered the Pepsi, I ordered the Coke. No, sorry, my watch was a Coke. I ordered a Pepsi, and I ordered the black insert. So really cool thing. But I think in the ceramic era, I think they would have to probably axe one of the. Maybe it's the Sprite. I don't know. But yeah, I think the Coke's going to come out in a precious metal eventually, right? We've been talking about the Coke. We talk about the Coke every year. It's like you can't have a prediction with in it. You can't have a prediction like page or article or show without the Coke in it because Archie even said it himself. Let me guess, Dan. Like when I asked him to look at this article, he said, "Let me guess, Dan. There's going to be a Coke and there's going to be a ceramic Explorer 2." Well, I don't think they go through the Explorer 2 here, but I do feel that the Coke is. Look, I like the Coke. I've always liked the Coke. I think there's just too many colorways in the GMT, and I think they're going to have to like let one go here. They're going to have to let one go. Keep my jubes out of your mouth. We got Dodger here join us. I saw him earlier. Didn't get a chance to pull it up. Let me pull up Dodger's comment here. Good afternoon, folks. Nice to see some Tans do some watch. Yeah, man. I was feeling a bit of watch talk today. No one was on, and there's been a lot of drama. It was like 24 hours of drama, I guess. I said, why don't we talk some wrist watches with everybody? Marco B says, I hope the Batman remains. Yeah, man, I agree. I really love the Batman's colorway. And look, I don't mind that it's not as loved as the Pepsi or other other models. Like it's not unloved. It is a loved watch. It's a popular watch. Don't get me wrong. It's not the end all. It's not the top dog anymore, I would say. And at one point it was, right, when we had the black, right. The GMT Batman was definitely a hype piece around that time prior to the Pepsi. The question is what will be discontinued from Rolex this year? Yeah, that's a tough one to say. Before what do I think they should discontinue? I think they should get rid of the Yachtmaster 1 in certain iterations of it. I think the Oyster Flex. I think the Yachtmaster on Oyster Flex makes sense. Keep it a precious metal watch. Like differentiate. It's even hard to differentiate from the sub that way before us because you've got gold subs. It's not like the sub is a steel model meant to be a tool watch, right? Like you could differentiate the lineups by saying, well, the Yachtmaster is the quote unquote precious metal version. You can't even do that, right? I really feel the Yachtmaster has no place in the lineup. I really don't understand why they have that there. Yachtmaster 2, I understand because it has a different function, but it's not really popular. What else? Explorer 2. Like if we're talking about so many GMTs before us, I think the Explorer 2 should be on the chopping block. Definitely. When you look at like Air King, Oyster Perpetual, and Explorer, it's hard to axe any one of those three because all three of them are historic. The Oyster Perpetual was actually the watch that was taken up the mountain, up Everest. Wasn't worn up, going up Everest, but it was either in a bag or in a pocket, or wherever the fuck it was. That was an Oyster Perpetual, right? So the Explorer is actually a commemorative to the Oyster Perpetual. The Explorer wasn't the watch that went up there. It's just it's a commemorative model, right? You're paying more for a commemorative dial to that ascent, right? Like, but again, Oyster Perpetual is pretty historic and it's pretty well loved right now. Explorer is historic. Explorer I don't think is going anywhere. And then the Air King, which I'd say of the three, the Air King should be on the chopping block. I never really liked the Air King. I think the new Air King is fucking crazy busy. Don't like the way it looks. Like the green on it. Don't really understand the crown guards, right? Like, it's called the Air King. The Air, it's an aviation watch, right? Like, Not to be confused with the GMT Master. You could probably say the same argument against me on this with the GMT Master because it also has crown guards. But I'm like, it's a fucking aviation watch, or it's supposed to be an aviation watch. What the hell do you need crown guards in an aviation watch? Are you like protecting the crown from when you bump into your fucking food tray and economy? Like, what are you talking about? Like, why do you need a crown guard? They added crown guards and everyone's like fucking simping. And I'm like, why? Like, what's the point? So I don't know. Maybe a looks perspective, the Air King looks better with crown guards. I don't know. I just don't really understand it. But look, you can make the argument the other way. I mean, you got the GMT Master 2 that has crown guards as well, also an aviation watch, right? So maybe Rolex just does it different. I agree. Time to discontinue a colorway from the GMT line before adding any other colors. I think it's the only way it's going to happen prior to a Coke coming here. Obviously, the Coke is a historic model. Can I go grab a few cards real quick? Are you good here? I really don't understand what that means. Uzi, are you Watch Nicholas's keeper? Like, are you protecting Watch Nicholas from the old JB? Like, look, guys, this is the Archie Luxury fucking live channel. You guys can go at it in the fucking chat all you want, man. Like, ain't nobody need protection, Uzi. Don't worry about that. David H. When anyone brings up the Air King, it reminds me of Bruce. Oh my god. Yeah, like very few people, David H. remember that. So there's a YouTuber named Bruce Williams. He's a good friend of Mark Goldberg's, and he had borrowed an Air King from a friend of his to do I think it was to do a review, and he was returning the watch to his friend that day, and for whatever reason, he put the Air King off. It took the Air King off of his wrist and put it on the roof of his car, and left his home. Obviously, the Air King flew off and got destroyed, basically. And he made a video. I think he came on YouTube. And I look, my memory may be off here, David H, but I'm pretty sure he asked people. He did like a GoFundMe or something like that to help pay for it because obviously it's not his watch. And Archie himself had offered. I think he offered like $1,000 for like the busted up Air King or some shit. So it was pretty funny back in the day. It would have hit all of the. We didn't have the news and we didn't have all the citizen journalists like fucking Watch Nicholas and Docs and Curly. We didn't have all these guys back then. We only had a channel called Watch WikiLeaks. It was an Australian guy. It was around the time when Guns App was still around, and it was a different time, but definitely a pretty funny thing that happened back then. All right, let's get back to this article here. So we got the GMT Coke. Not surprising on the Coke, guys. I don't think anybody would have been surprised at that prediction. Obviously, a nice looking watch. I think this would be excellent. I like the red text on the GMT Master too. That's pretty cool. Nice looking watch. I think this would look great on the Oyster. All right, let's get into the Rolex 1908. And is this malachite that they're because I think it's stone dials. Let's see here. Is this a malachite dial and is this a lapis? Okay, so yeah, malachite. Okay, so malachite and lapis lazuli. All right, so first one is a malachite dial, obviously on green. Look, I think this is not a bad. I don't think this is a bad play to put stone dials on the 1908. I think it's actually really smart. But I think I think they should probably have leaned in more on putting stone dials back into. Look, the point of what they're doing here is they want to put a stone dial in a dress watch, and I get that. But Rolex has a lot of dress watches. Date justs are dress watches. Date dates are dress watches, and I think that they could have probably spread a bit of that love. I do agree with putting it in the 1908, but maybe saving the lapis lazuli for the date date, right? Making a really fire date 840 with a lapis lazuli dial, being that real special model, right? I think malachite looks really good. Malachite's this green stone looks really good on this 1908. I think this would be a really good option. But lapis lazuli, obviously looks stunning in this 1908 as well. But again, it's a very sought after. It's one of the stone dials. I think if you look on the market, it's still very, very expensive to buy an 18238 date 8 or 18038 date 8 with a lapis style is still quite expensive. So I would have probably said, yeah, do stone dials, spread them across, have some in the date just like kind of have like a stone dial series, right? Like maybe you have, a certain stone in the date just, a certain stone in the date 8, a certain stone in the 1908. Obviously to stay in the theme of keeping it within their dress lineup. But look, I don't think this is a bad idea. And I do think that this is something that probably could happen. I think that this is a good way of sprucing up the 1908 lineup. I think Watchnik was calling this the Cellini all day yesterday, and Heck, I was like, man, it's not the Cellini's been discontinued, bro. This ain't the Cellini. Now, one interesting thing about this is Rolex has forever tried to sell a kind of dress watch on a leather strap, or this basic bitch dress watch that really isn't their DNA, and they've struggled forever. Like, this isn't a byproduct of today with the 1908 or before with the Cellini, or other iterations. Whether it was the Padalone or other type of watches that they tried to do. They're kind of like, you could say, trying to being like Trinity or high horology type looks. And yeah, it's I said this kind of on the streams the last couple of days, because for me, I don't go to the Trinity to buy sports watches. I mean, the best manufacturer of sports watches in the world is Rolex. So why would I go to Patek Philippe? Why would I go to Audemars Piguet? Why would I go to Vacheron? Not to throw any shade at anybody who's bought sports watches from them, because I have. I've owned multiple Royal Oaks. I've owned a Nautilus, right? Never owned an overseas, but I do like the overseas. But for me, if I want to have that sports watch, that iconic sports watch in my collection, it's going to be a sub, maybe the gold sub, right? I think the gold sub's a great watch. I mean, you got the iconic, Rolex sports watch slash tool watch in a gaudy yellow gold, whether with a black dot, which I think looks great, the old Steelers colors, or with the bluesy and the blue. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go for that. Um, when I look at high horology, or the Trinity, they 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 have a lot of a different, their expertise in what they do best is not really in sports watches. Even though, like, for example, Audemars Piguet is very well known for the Royal Oak, right? But is the Royal Oak a great sports watch? I don't think so. I think it's a beautiful. It's an art piece, right? It's kind of like that. It's an art piece. You ever see? I don't know if you guys are into art, but you ever gonna go to like an art studio or anything, or you go to an art museum, and you're kind of like, you see the most basic fucking shit on the wall, and it's probably worth like millions of dollars. That's really what the Royal Oak is, right? It's a really prettied up sports watch. It's not a functional, I wouldn't trust the Royal Oak in a lot of heavy sports activity. Similar to the Reverso, and many other pieces, but same with the Nautilus, right? It is definitely not going to be as robust as Rolex. So if I'm going to buy that iconic sports watch, I'm going to buy a Rolex. If I'm going to buy an iconic dress watch, or I'm going to buy something that is going to be the dress watch that I want to spend a lot of money on, because again, the term opportunity cost is very real to literally everybody. Don't matter how rich you are or how poor you are. Opportunity cost, the ability to say, well, I got 50 grand. I have a lot of options with that 50 grand. Similar to here, right? I've got, the option of buying a dress watch from Rolex at this or similar money. Can I buy one from Vacheron, right? And I'd probably lean to Vacheron over Rolex, because you are going to get better finishing in a Vacheron. You're going to get a Geneva seal movement, potentially a Geneva seal case, with a Vacheron for similar money as your Rolex. And yeah, it's more of their expertise. So I really feel Rolex fails on their dress watches that look like this, is they remove a lot of their DNA from the brand, from the watch. Whereas Datejust, Date8s are dress watches that have a lot of Rolex DNA in them, and that's why they are relatively successful compared to these 1908s. All right, next one up in the predictions is a Sea Dweller 43 in titanium. All right, so one point that I think Archie and Watchnik both missed was, again, monochrome is kind of looking back in the past. And if you see here on the screen, I'm zooming as far as I can go. This is a double red Sea Dweller. Okay, so they're trying to portray that, like, oh well, just like the blueberry, right? I showed you guys the blueberry existed, before, and monochrome's just kind of like, well, they may just do a blueberry again. For those that aren't familiar with a double red Sea Dweller, I'm going to pull up a double red Sea Dweller for you guys here. Just give me a second here to pull up a nice example of a double red Sea Dweller, and you guys will see what I mean. Double red. All right, so come on. All right, so you guys can see what I mean here. Double red Sea Dweller. That means 2 lines of red text. The current Sea Dweller 43 only has 1 line of text, of red text, which just says Sea Dweller. Whereas here in the monochrome article, they're showing that this titanium version may become the new double red. This is an interesting one, because I do believe that Rolex isn't just going to make titanium in one watch, right? Like, titanium yacht master, or whether it was the their deep sea version that really fucking, I forgot the name of it, the one that's super deep, kind of like the competitor of the ultra deep from Omega. Um, yeah, I didn't believe that they were just gonna make one or two titanium watches. I think there's gonna be a few more titanium watches than we do have today. So I do believe that this is a potential option. Yeah. Do I believe they're gonna put in double red on this? I don't think so. But hey, it would be cool. That I think would definitely, I think would spur a lot of life into the Sea Dweller. Sea Dweller's always been a bit of a niche range, a sub variant of the Submariner, you could say, and then even a sub variant of that being the Deep Sea Dweller. So it's kind of like, I think that the Sea Dweller, I like the Sea Dweller, and I know that the Sea Dweller, the SD4K, for example, very low production. That's one that I think is a bit of a sleeper right now. Very low production in those SD4Ks. But I think that double red would definitely push the purists into buying this. I would hope that they would try to remove that Cyclops. If they remove the Cyclops and they went just fucking old school double red Sea Dweller with a titanium case, I think would be excellent. I think that would be a banger. But again, I don't see them doing it. I think, yes, they'd probably do it in a titanium. Do I feel that they're going to do it? Do I feel that they're going to do it on the Sea Dweller? Yes, I think they should, because I think Goldberg was saying yesterday. He said the Sea Dweller is not a unwearable watch, but it's not a comfortable watch. So he felt that if they did make it in titanium, it would probably make the most sense. So yeah, I mean, this prediction, I think, could be something that could happen. And I think would be very popular. So definitely a fan of the SD43, and I think this would be cool in the titanium. All right. I'll show you a few more pictures of what they see here in the titanium. For those that want to have a look at this double red Sea Dweller, nice looking piece. Nothing against that one. Okay, so okay, this one was controversial. A smaller unisex Submariner 37 mil. Ooh, and it's kind of like I was talking about this earlier with the Tudor Black Bay 54. Do you think that they're going to do a 37 mil sub? So for those that don't know, the OG Submariners actually were 37 mils. Danny's favorite 6538, the Dr. No Bond Submariner, 37 mil watch. And do I think that they're going to go back to 37 mils on this? I think this is highly unlikely. I think that, I mean, they've had so much opportunity to make a smaller watch, a smaller sub. And I think that the sub has always been iconic in that 40 mil range. Even going to 41, is a bit off the beaten path, right? A millimeter. Look, the modern collector today probably doesn't give a fuck, right? They probably prefer, a bigger watch. It's just kind of like bigger is better for whatever reason, right? But I mean, like, fuck, the fucking bell bottoms were in fashion in the 70s, man. Like, I mean, I don't see Dodger wearing no bell bottoms today. So it doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. But that 40 mil size for the Submariner has been around since I think like the late 50s, early 60s, something like that, when they transitioned. And so, yeah, when you got like so many years of the 40 mil, I just can't see them going back to the 37 mils. It's not like smaller watches are becoming, are they becoming a little bit more in mainstream? Sure, but I don't see the demand pushing for smaller watches at a very high level. Not to the degree that they would take one of their flagship models and create a unisex option, right? Like, I think women are just fine wearing a 40 mil to 41 mil sub, no problem, right? That looks good on women, just like a Daytona, which is a little bit smaller, looks good on women. So I don't really see a point of a unisex option on the 37 mil sub. But I mean, it's not to say that they haven't done it. Rolex has, created. I mean, 37 mil subs existed for a while. I'm gonna pull up a Rolex 6538 Submariner, and I'll show you guys what a 37 mil sub looks like. Yeah, it's one on the wrist from Wind Vintage, our good friend Eric Wind. And this is a 6538. So this is, and you can see here on the size on the wrist, right? This is a 37 mil watch. You can see it's pretty small, but very similar. Like this size and this look is very similar to the Black Bay 54. And that's why I said when I wore the Black Bay 54, I felt that it's one of the few modern watches that actually felt like a vintage watch. One of the few modern watches that not only fit from a size perspective like a vintage watch, but had that feel on the wrist like a vintage watch. But I knew that it had all modern tech, modern parts, modern power reserve, not worried about water resistance, all that jazz, right? That's why I really like the 54. But there's always going to be that element, that contingent of people that are going to say, it's too small, it's 37 mils, right? Like, and half of these guys, don't have monstrous wrists. They're just like, I have a normal wrist, I have a 7.5, but I can't wear a 37, right? I can't be seen wearing a 37 or a 36, right? Like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because, I mean, Buckley, I'll bring Buckley up because Buckley's a funny one. Buckley always talked about how these, small watches and wear dress watches. And dude buys a 38.5 mil annual calendar, and he's not a small dude, right? Like, and it fits just fine. Like, it really does. It does not look off on him. It looks actually really good on the wrist. So, like, I mean, I think people need to like all of this, and even for those that actually know watches a little bit more than the average Joe would understand that even the diameter size doesn't necessarily reflect how big or small that watch wears. Not necessarily, just knowing by 37 mils. JDMTL, my Canadian brother, 279. Hopefully you're doing okay after that snowstorm on the weekend. JDMTL, yo, my man, Ted, Wash Talk King. Thanks so much, JDMTL. Appreciate that. But yeah, prediction on the new retro sub with a Rolex patent Rotina. Yeah, Fotina is an interesting one there, Joseph D. It's always been like polarizing. At least when it first came out, was like so many watch enthusiasts were like up in arms against Fotina, but now it's just so prevalent. We've become so desensitized by it that honestly, it wasn't like that should be one of the biggest gripes of the first Omega in space. The first Omega in space has Fotina, right? Or the No Time to Die was even a better example of that, Joseph D. When like everybody loved the No Time to Die when it came out, but nobody was really being like, "Yo, it's got fake patina," and because some people actually liked it. They actually thought it looked nice. So I think we're at a point, Joseph D, where the majority of the market's desensitized by Fotina. They don't care that it's not real. And probably most of their watches won't, fade to that color that, they're trying to depict on the screen. Whereas this watch on the screen that I have up here, is radium, right? You can see the deterioration on the lume, on the hands, on the lume plus. This is a radium dial. It's a completely different ball game in that this watch will age very differently than your kind of run of the mill modern Rolex. But yeah, that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, like, do I think that they're going to go back to this prediction that Monochrome has on 37 mil? I think Monochrome's way off here. Again, this is why I think this whole article, like I've shown you how many examples in this article of just Monochrome showing watches that Rolex made in the past. Like here's one of them, the Coke. They made Cokes forever, right? This Blueberry they made before as well, just not with a blue dial, with a black dial. Like they've made these watches before. So I think that like Monochrome's just being a little. I think the creative boys at Monochrome could do a bit better than this, right? This one was created before Double Red Sea Dweller. I showed you guys a Double Red Sea Dweller before. Like, for the new buyer, the person that's new to watches, right? This is going to look, refreshing. It's going to look cool. It's like, there's two lines of red text. That's going to look refreshing, but they're not going to know that this is something they've done in the past, which is actually a very popular, a very sought after vintage model, is the Double Red Sea Dweller. But that's why Monochrome is doing this, right? They're just posting it like that. They're talking about a unisex version of a two-tone. I believe this is rose gold. I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like this look. I don't know. Not really my thing. I don't know, Uzi. You think you like this? You like this rose gold? I don't know. Rose gold on a sub, man. Come on. Yellow gold on a sub. Okay, it's a bit gaudy. I can appreciate that, but rose gold on a sub. I don't know. All right, now we're gonna get into the Explorers. He's gonna go through the predictions on the Explorers. This is another one here. They call it the polar dial, right? Explorer 40 polar dial, right? Again, this is Monochrome getting it wrong. It was never called the polar dial. It was called the albino dial. And I'll show you guys a Rolex Explorer albino. This has past as well. Let me pull it up for you guys here. Rolex Explorer albino. Not called the polar dial, it's called the albino dial, ladies and germs. Albino dial. Let me find you an albino. Um, ultra rare 1016. Everest Straps has it here. All right, this is the Rolex Explorer. It's a 1016 albino dial. Okay, quite rare. I think it was like produced for certain executives. I forget the story of this. I don't know. I know the GMT, like the GMT Master albino dials were for Pan Am executives. I don't know if the Explorer had, the albino dial was created for somebody like that or just rare in and of itself, but they do exist. So this is again not new, right? Like you may be reading this article thinking, oh shit, polar dial off of the Polar Explorer 2. Nah, man, it's not from the Polar Explorer 2. It's from way before the Polar Explorer 2 ever came out. It's from the fucking albino Explorer 1, right? So again, I think Monochrome got it wrong. Do I think this is an option? Maybe, right? Maybe. I think yesterday they were talking about how they would have preferred this with like black, kind of black outlines on the indices and the numerals because similar to kind of the Polar Explorer 2, that would probably look better. Um, do I think this could happen? Yeah, it probably could. Is it revolutionary? Not really. They've done it before, but it is nice, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if I don't know personally if I would go for an albino explorer. It's not really my thing, but I get it. Just I think from afar, kind of just looks too similar to an oyster perpetual, and so I think of the black dial on the explorer is a bit iconic compared to this white dial. So for me, yeah, not a bad look, but I kind of prefer that double red. Sea Dweller and Titanium a lot better. Prefer the Blueberry on the Jubilee better. There's a couple other watches these guys have predicted I think are a lot nicer than this, for me at least. So yeah, I think that I think with the albino, it's not. It's a possibility, but it's not really my cup of tea. But not a bad looking watch. But like I said again, it's just Rolex not being creative, or at least these predictions are predicting they're not going to be creative. Even if they did on any of these, it's just really just regurgitating what they've done in the past. A full gold Explorer 36. Ooh, let's see this. There we go. A solid gold dancer for Uzi with a black dial. I'm going to be a little skeptical about this one. Now, I understand that they've done the two tone of the Explorer, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense because the Explorer is supposed to be like the absolute like bare bones tool watch. And I remember asking Archie. I said, Archie, what tool what is the tool in the Explorer? Like I mean, I understand the sub. I understand the GMT. I mean, the GMT tracks 3 time zones. The sub you can use underwater and has got a timing bezel and everything else. Like, what is the tool aspect of the Explorer? And back in the day, it was pitched as the Explorer had certain types of oils that could resist extreme temperatures while also maintaining extreme accuracy. Today, if you go to Rolex's website, they still market the Explorer as a tool watch, but the tool aspect of it is mostly just related to um, chronometric accuracy. It's just a very accurate watch, and that's why it's a tool. Which, in all honesty, is like literally every Rolex. Anything that's superlative chronometer -2 +2 could literally be like that. But it's okay, Uzi. I don't need help. I'm good. I'm running solo, and I gotta dip in about 10 minutes anyways. So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm not going to be on too long. I demand you hop on. Okay, you can demand him. Hey, look, hey, if Nikki wants to do Nick, if you want to do a show after this, I'm probably going to end in about 10 minutes. I can link over to you if you want. Just give me a heads up in the chat if that's what you want to do. And I got 50 people watching, so we could definitely continue the watch talk over there at Watch Nikki's. I got to dip in 10 minutes to eat some lunch, so it is what it is. But yeah, gold, look, solid gold Explorer, guys. I'm not 100% sure on the solid gold Explorer. I know that they made the two tone. I just don't see the point of it. It's supposed to be a tool watch. I don't really understand the fact of it just being a tool watch because of its accuracy on just the watch being a very accurate chronometer. Like I really don't get it on that, but I do love it. I do think it's a cool watch. I do like the Explorer. I think it's favored with me for different reasons. It's very like for me, the reason I like it because I don't think Bear understands why I like this watch, and it's a very personal thing to me because I mean I have so many complications in watches like we got the perpetual calendar, world time, weekly calendar, all that jazz, right? GMTs and everything. Um, I don't have a lot of very simple watches that are just time only. Um, and so for me, the Explorer is a very nice watch in that I don't have to go with like a no date sub or Rolex sub. You know what I call it the sub. I don't call it the no date, but it's Rolex sub because it's still the sub, and I have a Hulk and everything else. So I was like, I want something super simple that'll fly under the radar, but that'll be like really iconic Rolex that'll have the same great accuracy, good looks with the oyster bracelet. Just a really nice watch. This is why I like the Explorer. Its simplicity is what makes it so great, and the way it just it just vibes. I like it better than Oyster Perpetual. I don't think the Oyster Perpetual puts that package well. At least on the dial, I don't think it puts it as well together as the Explorer. I think it does a good job. I don't think it does it as well as the Explorer. And if on the flip side, on the Air King, I think it actually does a worse job. So it's a busier dial for what reason I don't really understand. I think the Air King is just trying for the sake of trying right now. So for me, the Explorer is kind of that sweet spot of a very simple watch, simple dial, and for me, it's just that simplicity is what makes it so great. And it's a watch you can literally I could walk around anywhere, and very few people would be able to tell it's a Rolex. Because it could be a Seiko, it could be an Omega, it could be a lot of things. But you have a Submariner on the wrist, you got a GMT on the wrist. Any of those watches easily identifiable. The Explorer, well, yes, if they do see the 3, 6, and the 9 on the dial, sure, they may be able to identify it to some extent, but doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily identify it. So you really get that under the radar feel and look with a Rolex. And there's few and far between Rolexes that can do that. That's why I think the Explorer is a special watch. I think it's special in the sense that it takes simplicity, it brings class to simplicity, and you can have a really nice sports watch that doesn't have to be um, elaborate with a big, timing bezel or with a GMT bezel. You don't need that stuff. Those watches have their time and their place, but so does the Explorer, right? When you want to wear a nice watch, and like let's say I'm traveling to London or I'm traveling to, New York City or whatever. I just want to be a little bit under the radar, but I still want to wear a nice Rolex, right? That's where you slap on that Explorer on the wrist because that's where I think it really hits a sweet spot. That and also why I would say that the Gold Explorer doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's a tool watch. Um, I mean, the Explorer's been out as long as the Sub has, and the Sub went full gold in the '60s, with the advent of the 1680, right, late '60s, early '70s, when the Sub first got its date. That's when it went full gold. I mean, the Explorer has not gone full gold, right? We've seen a two-tone variant in recent times, but that's where I think why people are indicating that it may be a solid gold coming out, but I don't know. I think that I think the lineup's not that popular. I think they're still a little bit out to lunch on that lineup. So I don't think so. I think that the two tone is probably best of I think the two tone's probably the best it's gonna get. I really don't think they're gonna go with solid gold. And if they do, I'm just not a huge fan of it. I just don't think that solid gold on the Explorer is really it's like making a solid gold Air King, right? Like the fuck needs a solid gold Air King? You know what I mean? Like, what's the fucking point of a solid? I found it so funny when Bear raged about that because I think I was trolling. So where it came from was I was trolling Bear when Bear used to run his channel. His theme of his channel was the search for the perfect watch, and um, the search for the perfect watch was really centered around the fact that Barrett knew that he would never find a perfect watch. So when he did his video um, on the gray side of the moon, he did a video on the gray side of the moon. I wonder if it's still up actually. Let me see if I could. I'm just trying to link here one of the shows to our after show. We're going to continue Watch Talk. So let me just do that real quick. Get that all linked up. We are linked now. So the last 5 minutes here, I'm going to see if I can find Bear's video on the gray side of the moon. But I do recommend you guys check out this video. Bear Clooney watches. I don't know if Bear still has his channel. Oh, Bear Clooney watches gray side. Yeah, 5 years ago. Okay. I'm just gonna share this. I'm not gonna play the audio of it, but basically in this video, Bear, highly recommended. Check it out. It's on Bear Clooney watches. He presents the Omega Speedmaster Gray Side of the Moon. Bear was like, he was so adamant that this is the best of all the sides of the moon, better than the blue side of the moon, which is the aventurine version, better than the dark side of the moon. And so I think I sent a super chat the other day saying, it was bare nuts for saying that this is the best side of the moon. And, he got a little triggered when like Archie and Roy were like, yeah, fuck that watch. And so then he went at me for the Explorer. And I found it so funny. It makes me like the Explorer more. The fact that Bear hates it or he's that angry about it. I don't know. But to me, Bear did some cool videos, man. I really did like his, I really don't know why he stopped making videos. Bear had a really good channel. Back in the day, actually, Bear used to never live stream. He always kind of just did videos like Archie did and Goldberg did. But I was trying to encourage him back. Bear refused to hop on our live stream. He would always be in the chat. He'd always be hanging out. But I can remember a time talking to Arch. I'd be like, yeah, it would fucking be great to have Bear Clooney on the show. But Arch is like, yeah, but Bear never wants to come on. He doesn't want to live stream, which we all know Bear's a natural at it, right? Like he's fucking, he can live stream, like with the best of them. So, but I guess at the time but look, his production quality of videos were pretty, like they were pretty decent back in the day. He would do this whole, you can see here with, he's got his gloves on, he's got his little toys, and he's showing all sides of the moon, the light side of the moon, the blue side of the moon, dark side of the moon, and obviously the gray side of the moon, which is the one he simps the most for here. But he really loved the gray side of the moon. And look, again, really good quality video. I'd recommend you guys check it out because I used to be a big fan of Bear's channel. I thought it was a really, really good. I thought it was a really good watch channel back in the day. A lot of information. Bear was, as much as I troll Bear for being a Rolex guy, he really used to buy a whole bunch of different watches, and he had a lot of Omegas. He's had IWCs. I remember he bought that Portuguese red dial back in the day. Like he always had a bit of a different take on watches, but a very good. He didn't just buy as much as we see him as just buying all the hype stuff, the Rolexes. He definitely looked into a lot of other things. But this was one watch. I remember watching this video 5 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, Bear's just fucking gone off the rails." If he thinks the gray side of the moon is the best one, but he really simps this watch. He really likes this watch, so that's why I'm recommending anybody. If you guys have some time, Bear used to do some pretty long videos. 18 minutes, but obviously you can see the production quality is decent for him. He's taking the time to actually show the watch, on the strap, really nice, on the wrist here, looks pretty good. Again, Bear, it's like, it's a bit boring. Loose Tooth says the tag a tour billion. I don't know why the tag's getting a lot of hate. Interestingly enough, that watch really caused a lot of a stir in the Swiss watch industry when Tag came out with the their Carrera Tourbillon, and it was cheap. It was 20,000, something like that. It was not expensive, relatively expensive, you could say. There was an article where Thierry Stern from Patek Philippe actually was like going at Tag Heuer for basically cheapening the Swiss watch industry, like where I think that there's kind of this like untold truth amongst all of them, oligopoly type of model where they just don't discount certain things, right? Certain complications. I mean, Tourbillon's not a complication, but create, or like let's say a minute repeater, right? Loose tooth minute repeater. You're not going to see cheap minute repeaters out there. Whether it's because you can't create them cheap, which I think is BS. I'm sure you could, but it's really that industry that's trying to keep minute repeaters very, very expensive. I think that I talked to Tim also about this. I asked him, like, what do you think is the best bang per buck minute repeater that you can buy? And there's kind of two options. There's a JLC reversal minute repeater and the IWC Portuguese minute repeater, which both are around that 40,000 mark. I mean, it's not cheap for a minute repeater, but this Tourbillon, which you could probably get in the teens now, I think actually was a pretty good. I'm going to be one of those few, the minority that's going to think it was actually a good buy. I do like it. And it's your easiest way to get into a Tourbillon, Swiss Tourbillon, at a pretty, from a good brand, a respectable-ish brand, you could say, from Tag Heuer, that is it's going to be good quality. So I understand a lot of people's beef with it. People don't like Tag, and people don't really see the Tourbillon being enough to overcome the Tag brand name. I don't know, but I think Bear gets a bit of a bad. I mean, look, look, he's been. Now Kelslowitz buying that Lee Snardin Freak X. I mean, that's a different the Magma's a completely different ball game with that. JB 599 euros. Thank you so much, JB. On behalf of the NoCal and Pittsburgh bums, JB, who did say this morning that, he was going at Tommy a bit. He said, look, JB said, I don't, I may beef people, right? I may have, certain, issues with certain individuals, but that's it. I don't switch camps. I don't switch teams, right? If I'm Team USA, I don't become Team Saudi Arabia. I don't become Team X. I don't become Team Y, right? So it's the case. But look, guys, I got to run. We got an after show coming up, and I will see you guys next time. I appreciate everyone joining me today. Quick ending here, and then we're going to transfer over you guys for Watch Nicholas and Uzi doing some more Watch Talk. All right, guys, I'll see you guys tonight. Take care, and peace out.